I call to order the Public Infrastructure and Utilities Committee meeting. It is Wednesday, December 11th at 3:34 p.m. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Vollmer.
Here.
Alderwoman Keys.
Here.
Alderwoman Velazquez.
Present.
Vice Chair Browning.
Present.
Chair Schweitzer.
Present.
We have 5 present. We have a quorum.
Thank you. And with that, with the quorum being present, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes. I would accept approval of the minutes of Wednesday, October 30th, 2024. October 30th?
Second.
Or is that correct, Madam Clerk? Wednesday, November 20th. Just please make that change on the agenda. It's Wednesday, November 20th. Moved by Alderman from the 5th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 6th, that we approve the minutes of Wednesday, November 20th, 2024. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Vollmer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Keys.
Aye.
Alderwoman Velazquez.
Aye.
Vice Chair Browning.
Aye.
Chair Schweitzer.
Aye.
We have 5 aye votes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With your vote, we have sustained the motion from the Alderman from the 5th and approved the minutes of Wednesday, November 20th, 2024. We don't have any board bills for review today or resolutions for review. Today we have the Metropolitan Sewer District coming here to speak with us on the stormwater projects that will be possible from the Proposition S that passed recently and some of the upcoming projects that we should expect to see. So with that, if the representatives from MSD could please approach the podium and introduce yourself into the microphone, and just thank you so much for coming and giving this presentation. And I do need to swear you in. Thank you. If you could raise your right hand. Okay, thank you. Yes. Sure, thank you. If you could raise your right hand, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you very much. Okay, Ms. McCoy, please proceed.
Thank you. Like I said, my name is Beth McCoy, Manager of Affairs for MSD Project here. Also with me.
Oh.
My apologies. My name is Beth McCoy, Manager of Public Affairs for MSD Project Clear. Also with me is Rich Unverfirth, our Director of Engineering, who oversees all of our capital work, and Bruce Litzinger, Assistant Director of Engineering. Again, thank you so much for having us today. We are so excited about the new Stormwater Capital Program that we're able to do because of the passage of Proposition S. We're excited to share that with all of you. If we go to the next slide. Just a quick look at our agenda for today. I'm going to start with an overview of MSD Project Clear and Proposition S that funds the new Stormwater Capital Program. I'll turn it over to Bruce. He'll talk about the specifics of what we have planned in the city. And then Rich is also going to talk about the municipal grant program that the city will have available to it. Next slide. Next slide, please. Oh, there we go. So a little background about who we are at MSD Project Clear. We are the wastewater and stormwater service provider for all of St. Louis and about 90% of St. Louis County. That map, the orange area is our service area. The gray is the part of the county that's not in our service area. Basically, we go out to about Highway 1. Fun fact, we're actually the 4th largest sewer in the United States after New York, LA, and Chicago. And we're a little bit different from most utilities in the region in that we are a government not-for-profit utility. So we don't have shareholders and dividends and bonuses. Every dollar we bring in goes right back into serving our community. I mentioned we are a wastewater and stormwater service provider. Those are 2 separate services, 2 separate utilities, separate funding sources. So you may be familiar with our wastewater program. We're about halfway through a major investment to bring our infrastructure into the 21st century. This is separate from that. This is all stormwater, separate funding. So we're happy to answer questions about that at another time, but what we have prepared today will all be related to stormwater. Next slide. So again, we have a brand new capital program for stormwater, thanks to voters approving Proposition S. Proposition S last April. Prior to that approval, we had funding approved to maintain the existing storm sewers and repair them if they broke. But what we couldn't do is design and build new solutions to new problems. But we know that the problem in the region is big. As of 2022, we had identified over $700 million worth of necessary improvements throughout our region that had no funding source. So what Proposition S does is allows us to start addressing those problems. We'll bring in about $35 million annually, so you can do the math on that. 700 million in known problems, 35 million annually. It's going to take time to get to everything, but at least this is a start. Next slide. As far as how we'll be raising that 35 million, we are charging our customers based on whether they are non-residential or residential. On the non-residential side, they'll be billed about $1.05 for every 1,000 square feet of impervious surface on their property. If you're not familiar, impervious surface is those hard surfaces like rooftops, parking lots, driveways, anything that doesn't absorb stormwater but instead contributes to stormwater runoff. And the idea there is that we want to make sure that those who are contributing the most to the problem are also paying the most. They will receive their first bill in February of 2025. And then on the residential side, it will be a new property tax that will appear on the December 2025 property tax bill. So, as you can tell, no funds have been collected yet, and our first full year of funding won't occur until February of 2026. Next slide. So that's where the money is coming from. Where it will go, we know that there are a lot of different ways to prioritize stormwater projects, and the problem is big. So we wanted to put together a program that recognizes that. So the way that we are spending the funds, they go into 4 different buckets. The biggest is going to be that 50% bucket, looking at those $700 million of identified projects we already have. We are going to evaluate them, and based on what has the biggest bang for our buck, we're just going to knock them off, starting there, working our way down. And Bruce is going to go into a little bit more detail on that. The next bucket is 30% in municipal grants. That includes the city. Rich will talk a little bit more about that, but the idea behind it is we know that local leaders also have an idea of what matters most to their community, and we wanted to give them decision-making authority, what's most important at a local level. 10% will go to what the federal government defines as environmental justice areas. These are low-income and historically underserved areas. So any project in one of those areas that isn't already getting funded through that 50% bucket will move on to a separate list, and we'll take the top priorities based on that cost-benefit ratio and knock those out. And basically, this just ensures that those historically underserved areas definitely will get served as part of this. And then the final bucket, we reserve 10% for a regional fund. We're going to be working with the Muni League, which the city is a member of, to identify what's missing, what isn't being addressed through these, or what would serve the region as a whole the best. So those are how we'll be prioritizing projects. Again, Bruce and Rich will go into a little bit more detail on some of those. And the next slide. So before I turn it over to Bruce to talk about that 50% bucket, just a reminder, we have $700 million identified. We'll bring in $35 million annually. So if all of that funding was going straight to that 50% bucket, it would take us 20 years to get to everything we know, and we know that that problem is still going to grow. So basically what I'm trying to communicate is this is a start, but it will take time to get to everything. As far as what that timeline looks like more concretely, since funding will begin in February 2025, we'll also start design work on the highest priority projects at that point. Our plan is to start construction on the first project by 2026. So with that, I'll turn it over to Bruce to talk about the prioritization and what we have planned in this.
Thank you. So next slide, please.
Just say your full name and title as well, too. Thank
Okay.
you.
I'm Bruce Litzinger, Assistant Director of Engineering for MSD. And I'm going to talk about how we prioritize projects. Actually, is there a slide that has a map on it before or after this one? Maybe oh, is it? Okay, I got them backwards then. I'm sorry. Could you go back? So I'll talk about first how we prioritize. So, and we've done this for a very long time. We use a consistent methodology by our that look through a worksheet and score projects and look at the benefits, divide by the cost, and that dictates how we proceed in the order of project funding. So some of the things we look at, and it's more complicated than this, but just at a high level, the relevant factors are we look at, what's damaged. Is a structure been flooded, water going through the house or whatever? That's the highest priority. The next highest priority is the streets or roadways, and then just simple flooding or, pooling of water in a yard would be the lowest priority. So, and then we also look at the frequency. How often does it happen? Does it happen once every 2 years, once every 15 years, or more infrequent than every 15 years? Those are the three categories. And then also what plays into it is how many properties are affected. So each parcel of property that's impacted will get benefit points. And then we perform a conceptual level analysis of the cost, all on consistent cost basis. We take the benefit points, divide by the cost, and then that gives us our priority rate. And we've done that for all 500 projects every budget year. And we've currently scheduled 5 years of projects and identified them, and we're continually now, especially that we have funding now, and the answer can be yes to a lot of these projects. We're getting more projects identified, so we continue to go through our prioritization. But we budget on a 5-year basis and then annually update. So next slide, please. So, and here's an example of a map that we produced for all the municipalities, and it shows all of the projects that we have identified under stormwater funding for the particular municipality. We've got 18 projects listed on this map. For this, these are the ones that MSD will deliver. So we've got the first 5 years of the program are in blue, and so we got 7 projects planned, all to address localized flooding. And I believe, did you receive a copy for information? We have additional information we can give you on what each of those funded projects are, and then, yeah. So, so you kind of see what they're all about.
This is very helpful. Thank you.
And then in addition to that, so those 7 represent about over $16 million in capital funds that we'll put to work by the fiscal year 2030. All the funding will be appropriated. It'll produce over 1.5 miles of additional sewer, 3 miles of additional swale or drainage channel. And then, as I said, we have 11 additional projects identified but not yet funded in that 5-year window. And with that, I'll turn it over to Rich to talk about the grant.
Good afternoon, Rich Underfirth. I'm the Director of Engineering for MSD. And obviously, we can answer any questions afterwards as we go along because we covered a lot of information. But one of the things when we were working to get a stormwater rate to start addressing these issues, and we went out and talked to municipalities, was the need of addressing the municipalities say, hey, if we have something that we think is a priority to us, but doesn't end up in our cost benefit, what are our opportunities to get that done? And one of the opportunities is a municipal grant program that would allow municipalities to spend their money that we're collecting, and we would offer to you in the form of a grant. So I'm just here to talk a little bit about that. The way we structured the grants, of course, there's 88 municipalities in the district, is we distribute it based on population. Very similar to the way the state issues park grants and stormwater grants themselves. And we wanted to have a minimum dollar amount. And obviously, you don't want to, if you go by population, some of them are going to get hardly anything. But so we kind of distributed that. So the minimum is $30,000 for some of the smaller municipalities in the county, and the highest is actually the city of St. Louis, and then unincorporated St. Louis County. An annual grant of $1.55 million would be available to the city. Municipal grants will start in January of 2026. Our outreach to the municipalities, providing how the grants can be accessed, things like that, will start next summer. We have a similar grant program right now that we're utilizing in some of our smaller taxing districts in the county, and there's about 50 municipalities that are part of that. It'll be structured very similar to that. And then if you'll move to the next slide, please. Some of the things that we're seeing that we are eligible for grants, and again, we want to be flexible with the municipality on what they think is a priority to them, particularly if it deals with a flooding issue or erosion issue and where they might want to spend that money. So we've seen construction of new storm sewers and inlets, just improved drainage projects. We've seen that for municipalities, even on parks projects or properties that the city's owned. Bank stabilization where you have erosion problems. Buyout of floodplain and floodproofing in areas that flood. That's available. Particularly the cities are responsible for their floodplain. They have access to FEMA or SEMA funds, and those are batching funds. The district MSD does not have access to FEMA funds, so us being able to channel those municipalities then would leverage funds better for us. Bridge cleaning, detention basins that the municipalities may own. Planning and engineering, if there was something that you wanted to look at, a problem area that you felt like you wanted to look at, you could hire an engineer and look at it. And then if it became a project, it could be either done by the city or you could turn that information back to us. We'd put it into our system and see where it came out, benefit cost ratio. And what kind of the catch-all is any other storm-related expense. In other words, we want the catch-all. One of the questions that came up during our discussions regarding the rate, there was a question, could the grant funds be utilized for the flood wall protection system? And the answer to that would be yes. So that's obviously a big deal to the city of St. Louis, is maintaining the flood wall. So those are things that I think give an opportunity to municipalities. Not all the municipalities have, the wherewithal and how to do those grants. We're probably going to be offering some assistance with them, particularly some of the smaller ones. But those are some of the things we're going to be working out over the next 6 months. That kind of covers the grants. So overall, I think we're open for questions, and if we can't answer them today, obviously we can get back to you, or we're right up the street, so we could come back to another meeting. But we'd be open to questions, and I'm going to call my colleagues back up, and so we know who's.
We have our contact information as well, if you would like. Yeah, we have our contact information as well if you have any questions that you'd like to send directly instead.
Thank you so much for being here and for that presentation. I always appreciate the information and how much I learn. No matter how many times I kind of see the information, I always learn a new piece of it or have more questions. So I'll turn it over to my colleagues for questions here, starting with Alderman Vollmer.
Just
Mm-hmm.
go. Just on this list of projects, I'm guessing these are not just, like I see 6918 Oletha. Is that just for one particular residence that this is occurring? Or is there more than one? Because I know I have many streets where many houses get this. I didn't know, this looks like it's singling out one particular address, which I would be concerned about.
Yeah,
Because it looks like the house might not be, the value of this is the house already.
Right, I see where you're coming from. It's our, it's more a factor of our naming convention. When we do projects, we always do the street and then we'll wear on the
Okay,
street.
so it's,
Sometimes,
the
if
6918,
it's
I
a
was wondering if that was the.
multiple block, we
Because I
might,
looked up, is that there is an address, it's not my ward, but I didn't know if
it's,
that
it's a
person
pretty
was a
small
friend of.
project, so it may be just one
Okay.
home that we've identified or that's
Okay.
complained that we know has been flooded, but it, not necessarily, so.
Okay.
um,
'Cause I
Yeah,
have full
it's
stories
275
that occur.
feet of 12-inch storm sewer, so definitely longer than one address, I'd
Okay, 'cause
imagine.
Just wasn't clear on how that, the nomenclature and what's going.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions?
No, that'd be it.
Okay. Alderman Keys.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman Velasquez.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for being here. Just a quick question. I think this is slightly related. I appreciate you coming here for this presentation and the holistic approach. I think we all can agree that taking a look at things regionally and holistically is a good thing. Just curious, because something that we're looking at in the city, I think holistically, is the issue of vacancy. With this, I guess, more influx of funding for these things, is MSD still planning on aggressively pursuing liens for vacant buildings now that, one, there was a court case, a ruling, but also that, there's some more funds in this, and obviously in the spirit of collaboration and trying to look at problems holistically, vacancy is a real issue for the city, and the extra liens are not something that is super helpful for us.
I am at a very high level familiar with that. Unfortunately, we do not have the right staff to give a answer on that, but I'd be happy to follow up after this with more details.
Sure, that would be great. Thank you.
I think we're within the last. I will say, with regard to demolitions, it was part of our green infrastructure program. And when we submitted the plan, the city and MSD were partners in a pilot. And there was some concern by EPA of putting parameters around the expenditures for that type of approach versus constructing green infrastructure. So when we submitted our plan to spend the full $100 million in green infrastructure, we did put a cap at 15% of the $100 million, so $15 million cap on it. And I think in our partnership with the city, we're probably within $1 million to $2 million hitting that cap for green infrastructure funds for us to take credit under our consent decree, our wet weather, for the demolition piece. Yeah, and the liens come in with, what do we have to show for the money for, producing reduction in combined sewer overflows, which is the whole purpose of the fund. So we've actually, I'm responsible for development review, and where we've seen some liens on a development come in, we will rework the recorded agreements to be compatible with the new development. So it's not really an intent to hold up development, it's really to help.
We'll follow up on that.
Okay.
Yeah, no, and I think, it's not, I think it's just one of those things that I think we all can agree that we want better infrastructure in these things, that we want to, and we want less vacancies, and there's got to be, I think some of the things that I've seen, and of course some things of reporting in the paper of trying to sell vacant buildings and the liens being higher than the actual property itself, which, in the end, like, the net cause of that is not being able to develop a vacant building. And I think that doesn't help anybody, right? That doesn't help you all, and doesn't help us. So just, when you look at things, again, holistically, where can we collaborate? Because certainly we want to move forward as a region, like you're doing right now with all the great work that you've shown us today. So I have no other questions.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Vice Chair Browning.
No questions at this time. Thank you so much to MSD for coming to share with us today, and just for their responsiveness. I always find it easy to work with them.
Thank you, Alderman. Hope you feel better. Wonderful. Thank you so much. You all are always very responsive to the questions that I have. I would be very interested in knowing about the where these projects scored in the list and why they were the ones chosen. I understand that they would have had to have scored a certain way, but that's something that I'd love more information on if possible. Or you can send it to me as it is.
Yeah. we can
Um,
follow up on that as well.
Cool. Yeah, a few of these projects, the Elena Avenue one, I believe, is in my ward. The Holly Hills project, I would assume is in my ward. But Holly Hills does extend outside of my ward. So those two in particular, I look forward to being able to tell people about. And I know there's a few other projects that are on the list in my ward, but not in the first 5 years, I guess, unless the city chooses to fund them.
I just kind of want to add to, and we're fighting this throughout our service areas now that people know we do have funding, it is, but, and over the years where we've had to basically tell people no.
Right.
We're going to see more, and I think Bruce alluded to that. If something comes in and we find that it meets that cost benefit, we look at that 5-year list every year. And
I
then
appreciate that.
at the same time, if we get into a solution, if project is funded, and we find that the solution, maybe it's a larger, and it would change the cost benefit, typically we not follow through with the project. We'll continue with it. Say the solution costs more, we don't change the cost benefit and move it back. We'll go ahead and proceed with the project.
There's just so much sunk cost there, I can imagine, with by the time you realize in the project where you're at with getting something done with engineering and the time spent and the any right-of-way work you might have
Exactly.
done.
Yeah, I mean, right away becomes an issue. Other utilities that when we did the conceptual, what we thought was a solution,
Right.
find there's conflicts with other things. Quite frankly, we find that the people in some instances have taken care of the problem themselves because they weren't going to wait around for us. But definitely, I wanted to go back to the grants. We're available. Our staff will be available to discuss, with city staff or whomever of some of the priorities that we feel like, would be beneficial and let you know what we have as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that as well. The grant application process will be interesting to know how that goes. And I know you said it'd be ready for partners to review in 2025. What I think will be interesting about that is you've identified some of these projects, which may be where municipalities are looking first, what you would kind of think to those projects and saying, where are they? How much is the estimate for construction? But do you anticipate in the grant application, the municipality having to do all of the engineering work, or are you kind of starting from a certain point of work that you all have already done for the projects that are already listed?
Yeah, I mean, if there's a conceptual, obviously we'd provide that. And in some cases, we've taken it to, say, a preliminary cost estimate. But beyond that, then the engineering and the construction would be part of the grant.
So it would be possibly more than what you've outlined,
Correct.
because you're outlining it as what the project would cost you to do,
Yeah,
not what it would cost the partner to do or municipality.
yeah, generally our costs that we use for benefit costs includes design, engineering, and
Oh, okay, it does. Good, good. So if that were a situation in which the municipality who got the grant said, we'd like you all to do it, you're saying that's part of the potential in the grant? That we could say, it's a $1.5 million project, MSD, can you do this project? Or are you going to say, no, you're not doing any projects, those grant are going to contractors? Does that make sense?
Yeah, generally the funding would just be completely turned over to the municipality.
Okay.
And that's only because for me to understand where those ebbs and flows would be for what the needs of the municipality would be, I'm trying to get the other 60% done with internal.
I understand. The 10% to disinvested communities, I believe there's a board that's how you said municipal, how is that?
Yeah.
Is that just census tract in your list?
So those are separate. There's a 10% for what the federal government calls environmental justice areas. And those, we're using the map provided by the state and federal government, and then taking our list of projects, anything that's not addressed already will go on a separate list and separate prioritization.
Okay.
And then the other 10% is for regional issues that are most likely getting missed. We're working with the Muni League on that, and working on what that looks like hoping to have at least the first 3 years kind of planned out and then reevaluate.
You've just encouraged me to become more involved with the municipal league.
Yeah,
Appreciate-
absolutely.
I
absolutely.
appreciate that. That's a good, I appreciate the breakdown and the thoughtfulness of how projects work and who needs to have input on them. And I'm grateful for it. Those are the questions that I have on this. Do we have any written testimony or anyone signed up to speak?
We have, we have none.
Okay. Is there anything you all would like to say just in closing?
I'd just like to say thank you again for inviting us. One final point is that, one, we know that the problem is bigger than what we've already identified, and we also know that it's growing. And the best way for us to know what needs to be solved is if people let us know what's going on. So as you're working with your constituents, please continue to send them our way so that we can get these projects identified, get them eventually scheduled, and then any help just managing expectations, like I mentioned. It's going to take time to get to everything.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you. I appreciate that. Any other? Okay. Thank you for being here. It's great to have you. You always do a great job. We have no written testimony. Any announcements? All members were present, so no excused members. And with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second,
And a call for previous
Previous
roll?
roll.
Okay, it's been moved by the Alderman from the 5th, seconded by the Alderman from the 11th. There's been a call for previous roll. Any discussion? Any objection to previous roll? Hearing none, we are adjourned.
thank you.